This is Lake Guatavita in Colombia. It's nearly perfectly circular, deep and secluded in a mountainous, heavily forested region. For centuries, it's been tied to tales of immense treasure and an otherworldly being that demanded gold. Here, in the Colombian Andes, the Muisca or Chibcha people had their homeland. From about 600 CE, this was a sophisticated chiefdom whose rulers presided over hundreds of smaller communities. They were famous for their gold work, so much so that when the Spaniards arrived in the 16th century, they had a word for it: El Dorado, the Gilded One. That was the Zepa, the ruler of the Muisca. And there's this story about him. Every year, he would take a fleet of boats to the middle of the lake and throw in huge amounts of gold, precious stones and emeralds, all for the amusement of a deity of the depths. And so the Spaniards heard these stories and they thought, aha, the natives have a rich tradition of making offerings to a lake god, which must mean there's lots of treasure down there. Thus began the City of Gold myth, a legend that would inspire explorers to seek untold riches in El Dorado's domain. In 1912, an engineer named Hartley Knowles drained part of the lake and reported finding gold artifacts. He believed there was more in the mud at the bottom, and that the Zeba's offerings were real. But who or what was the lake god? Was it a supernatural being, a person, or something else entirely? Well, one popular idea is that the visitors weren't here for treasure, but for gold. You see, gold is inert, an excellent conductor, and it's really good at reflecting infrared. So it's used in space hardware and thermal shielding. Maybe the early Muisca knew things we don't know and were using gold in ways we can't even imagine. Maybe they saw something in the sky and believed the best way to contact it was through offerings in the deepest part of a sacred lake. Sometime around 1300 CE, somewhere along the Colorado River in what's now Kanab, Utah, a group of people hid a massive stash of Aztec riches in a cave. At least, that's one version of how the lost Dutchman's gold came to be hidden in the red rock canyons of the desert. The legend goes back at least 100 years, and it's inspired generations of treasure hunters. But why here? Well, chroniclers of the early Spanish conquest tell of the Aztec ancestral homeland, Aztlan being somewhere in the US Southwest. There is a story about how the first 7 Aztec kings were born in 7 different caves, after the legendary figure of the culture hero emerged from a flint knife that fell from the heavens. Some say that was a spaceship. Then later, after the Spanish arrived, after Moctezuma II died in 1520, stories say the Aztecs moved sacred valuables north to a place called Paquim, believed to be modern-day Chaco Canyon, and eventually those treasures made their way into a cave. The lost Dutchman's gold is said to include a massive gold and silver chalcutlik, a ritual skirt worn by women representing the earth goddess. It also includes a giant cartwheel, like sun disk, and other ritual objects intended for the feathered serpent god, Quetzalcoatl, who is sometimes shown with a helmet. And that detail fuels the idea that the Aztecs weren't alone in the world. Their gods came from the stars. The legend lives on in petroglyphs and symbols found across the Southwest. Some believe the visitors came not just for gold, but for genetic material, that they experimented on humans, creating hybrid beings with animalistic qualities. We see these ideas reflected in ancient Egyptian art, too, where artists depict hybrid beings with human and animal characteristics. Some of them look strangely familiar. Then there are the many shafts and tunnels found across the Giza Plateau. Take the Osiris shaft, which runs 98 feet into the bedrock. It starts near the Sphinx and ends abruptly about 30 feet below ground. Another tunnel, the so-called Sphinx shaft, runs under the paws of the great statue. Mainstream Egyptologists agree the Sphinx dates back to sometime before 2500 BCE, during Kaffa's reign. Alternative researchers say erosion proves the Sphinx is much older. And then there are the voids beneath the Sphinx. In 2017, a team using ground-penetrating radar reported finding large voids, about 60 feet beneath and 30 feet from the pores of the Sphinx. How to access them and what they're for is still debated. But the very fact that there could be something down there has fueled speculation of secret archives and high-value caches hidden beneath the sands of Giza. And then there's Kerala in India. In 2011, following a court order, officials opened 5 vaults under the Sri Padmanabhaswamy temple. What they found inside was worth tens of billions. Gold bars, jewel-encrusted crowns, ceremonial swords and shields, solid gold statues of gods. But there's a 6th vault, Vault B. It remains sealed behind 3 granite doors with cobra warnings, and local lore speaks of a mantra-sealed barrier. Vedic epics describe battles in the sky and devastating weapons. Imagery some read as evidence of ancient astronauts. What if the legends are true? What if Vault B does guard something powerful or dangerous? Something so awesome that it requires a temple to keep it safe. So let's step back for a moment. Through Guatavita, to Kanab, to Giza, to Kerala, the stories of alien treasure tend to follow a similar arc. A culture makes lavish offerings to something in the sky. Rumors spread of vast riches hidden in a cave or vault. The items in question are often described as being both valuable and dangerous. And that raises questions about why these cultures believed they needed to hide certain things and what those things actually are. It's easy to dismiss these tales as mere myths, products of fancy or fear. But there's evidence to support parts of the stories. The rituals, the artifacts, the tunnels, yet none of the wilder claims about ancient astronauts. As for the treasure itself, well, we may never know if it exists, but that won't stop us from looking. Thanks for watching. Do you think these legends are about wealth or technology? Or are they really about our yearning to find meaning in the universe? Let us know in the comments. And remember, the search isn't only for gold and jewels, it's for knowledge. Stay curious.